Alright, guys, I'm reviewing Alita Battle Angel. Now, I'm unfamiliar with the source material, and I don't really like to review things when I'm unfamiliar with the source material because I might give it a good rating when it's actually disrespectful to the source material. Because Hollywood has a bad habit of taking things by name that are only the source material in name and drastically making alterations, drastic shifts, things that really just have like movies can perform well, but if they're nothing like the source material, they're just disrespectful, and I'd rather not support them. But in this case, just by the look of the character alone, you can tell that it is in some it is in some sense respectful to the source material because it's based off an manga type character, and she's got the anime eyes, and it's really interesting just to see somebody take it to that level. Uh, Another reason I really wanted to review this too is because critics seem to be slamming it. Well, I don't really like to use that term since everybody slams everything, according to people. Every time somebody says something negative about anything, it's slamming it, which is pretty out there to say. But critics are not taking kindly to it. They're bad mouthing it, they're putting it down. And typically, when mainstream critics do that, I feel more encouraged to see a movie because they're shills. They get incentives to prop up movies by putting down other movies, are just propping up movies for political agendas. It's very much like politics itself. So I always go against what critics say. I go and form my own opinion. So here I'm giving you Alita Battle Angel since she's receiving very unfair reviews. I've got to say, this movie is quite amazing. First, the story. The story is pretty much this android, or cyborg, if you will, is found and brought back. Reset. Well, I wouldn't say resuscitated because she was never a breathing thing. I don't think that. Well, actually, she was because okay. First, let me say that this head is found. This head, and the woman is restored into a cyborg body, a cybernetic body, and she's got the anime eyes. She doesn't quite exactly know who she is, and throughout the film, she learns a little bit about herself. And but they live on this single standing city that is pretty much a scrap heap, or supposed to be a scrap heap. It's pretty like third world in nature. I mean, they do have some good stuff in there that pretty awesome, even though they live in this scrap heap of a city. But uh ultimately, there's an upper city, and that's where everybody wants to get to. It's called Zolom. It's supposed to be like paradise, and Alita is the main. Alita's our protagonist. Okay, so she's restored. She doesn't know quite exactly who she is, but she recovers some of that along the way. Now, in the film itself, I gotta say, there's all kinds of positives. Firstly, the character is just mesmerizing. She is absolutely wonderful. She's highly motivated. She gets knocked down, gets back up, gets more motivated to pick herself back up. She stumbles and falls and fails along the way, but just gets more motivated to step up and try again. She's by no means a Mary Sue, and a lot of social justice seem to be attacking her because of that. She is just she's funny sometimes. She's cool. She's adorable. She does some really, really like wow things. Like at one point in the film, she offers her heart up, like just to help somebody out. She's absolutely amazing, and I found her just a breath of fresh air. Not only that is she's a real battle angel. That's the only way to put it because she's fierce, she's elegant, she's just so coordinated, and it's awesome to see. Like she handles battle gracefully and triumphs. like, but they've got all kinds of interesting things in the story itself. Like they become bounty warriors or warrior bounty hunters, I believe is what they call it. She becomes that in a certain portion of the film. She's when the first time she battles, she starts to recover some of her memories, so that gives her incentive to enter battle more often, thinking that it'll help her learn who she is and who she used to be. Meanwhile, the guy that brought her back, um, she's convinced that he knows more about who she is ultimately, and there's there is some interesting aspects about this movie, like the culture of the movie, about all the cyberpunk type stuff. All that's very interesting. And uh, apparently, there was this war like 300 years ago between this race, or the cyborgs, or whatever, called Orms, the Orm, and they fought against the main villain of this movie is like Novak or something like that. His name's only forgettable because honestly, he wasn't in that much of the film. He is the main antagonist though, and that let me just say the weak parts of this film. First of all the fight scenes, some of them are very short, but they're just awesome to see, and the special effects, the CGI animation, the character animation, they're absolutely amazing. Uh, it's James Cameron here, so you can't go wrong. And there's just all kinds of interesting elements to this culture, this city, this world. It has some great exposition. It has some great world building. The mixed aspects of this movie are probably, you know, it doesn't tell too much of the background. The mixed aspects of this movie are pretty much that it never elaborates really how this war started 300 years ago, how her people were defeated, or really who the bad guy or good guys were in this war. Maybe ultimately the main antagonist is was a good person, or who's to say? But it doesn't elaborate either to at what point in time society or culture decided that putting human beings in cyborg bodies was the way to go. It never elaborates how that came to be a thing. Uh, there's a few other things that it doesn't make entirely clear. The main villain uses people as puppets. I don't really. The only clear thing about his motivations is that some reason he hates Alita, and that's because 300 years ago their armies were rivals. But it never makes it quite clear why all this came about. So those are the mixed and negative aspects, along with it's really set up to to go for a sequel. And with movies, you can never really tell if you're gonna be able to make that sequel. So it's always the best idea to make an isolated story that wraps itself up. You don't want to be overly ambitious. Bet this film went for that route. And I've got to say, I call all those things mixed aspects because they're not actually negative. They don't hurt the film. See, sometimes films tend to give way too much world building and exposition, and you never get, characters fleshed out or really formed. And not to say that Alita is fully fleshed out. She's not. She's far from it. She doesn't know everything about who she used to be. She knows enough to know that she was a warrior, a battle angel, and her people were very elite. So it's fair to say though that she knows who she is at heart, and that's good enough. But they're mixed aspects because it doesn't really let the audience know too much about how all this began, and it had a lot to set up, so it's understandable why it didn't do that, and it's understandable why it shoot for multiple films. So, all in all, Alita was absolutely amazing. Seeing that the eyes, that was cool. That was cool to see. The animation of the character was cool. She was absolutely mesmerizing. Just some of the whole warrior bounty hunter stuff, that was cool. The whole kind of sports angle where they enter this match and stuff together. And she's a really strong female character that never has to really put down men to prop herself up. There's none of that social justice crap in here. It's absolutely refreshing because so many movies have been taken over by that narrative, especially when they're of a female lead. Star Wars, Marvel's looking pretty grim with Captain Marvel. Uh, Ghostbusters went to hell. Yeah, there's none of that in here though. There's nothing to worry about. So I highly, highly recommend this movie, and I just I just can't praise this movie enough, recommend it enough. It's an easy 8 out of 10. If it would have fleshed itself out a little more in terms of how the background of all this began, and it could have possibly hurt the film, but it could also probably improve the score of the film. But it is absolutely a must-see film. Highly recommend it. Even if you're not a fan of the manga or anime, uh, it's just refreshing because there's no POC behavior in here, and the woman, like she does have to save her boyfriend and stuff like that. Like he even calls her for help and stuff, and you don't feel as a man, you don't feel like you're being put down to prop up the woman. You don't feel like the male characters are being put down to prop up the woman. There are a couple things in here that like don't really make sense. She gets on like one fight and decides she's gonna be a bounty hunter because the guy won't let her get in the body she found because it's a threat due to her brain, like in her species, and so she kind of goes to this bar and tries to get all these people that are supposed to be like the heroes of the city, all these bounty hunters to align with her, and she just doesn't have a real reason to call for them to align with her. I guess you could say uh, that, she just assumed that they were heroic like people because the job they've taken on to be warrior bounty hunters. But no, they're they're not heroes. She learns that pretty fast. Uh, And there's a couple negative things in here about maybe how quickly her and her boyfriend fall for each other. But, women get emotionally attached a lot faster. So I didn't find it too far out there, especially because they do spend some time together. And it's kind of like the first guy that she's really got a thing for. Uh, so you fall hard and fast. But this film was great. Absolutely great. 8 out of 10. Go see Alita. Don't listen to these critics. Give her a fair chance. She's absolutely mesmerizing. it's badass to see those animated eyes in a live action. Those anime eyes in a live action film. It's incredible. Um, Alita, Battle Angel, absolutely awesome. 8 out of 10. Subscribe, ring that notification bell. Check out my other videos. Stay awesome. Rock on.